ग्लोबली इस इंडस्ट्री की तो अभी तक हमने पूरा नीड फॉर क्रिएशन समझी। अब वैल्यू चेन क्या है, एंड वैल्यू चेन के साथ साथ ग्लोबली व्हाट आर द बैरियर्स टू एंट्री इन दिस।
बड़ा खर्चा करना होता है एक बड़ी कैपेसिटी सेटअप करने के लिए। यू कांट जस्ट हैव 3-4 CNC machines and say that we'll scale up.
इंडियन प्लेयर्स कौन कौन से एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, क्या क्या मतलब उनकी कैपेबिलिटीज़ हैं, कौन कौन से प्रोडक्ट्स में ऑपरेट कर रहे हैं।
जो लार्ज एरो स्ट्रक्चर्स का जो असेंबली का काम है उसको 15 साल लगता है आने को। लिस्टेड स्पेस में सिर्फ एक ही कंपनी कर रही है।
व्हाट विल बी सॉर्ट ऑफ अ चेकलिस्ट टाइप फ्रेमवर्क दैट यू विल हैव कि एटलीस्ट इस कंपनी में ये तो होना ही चाहिए। एंड व्हाट आर सम ऑफ द रिस्क फैक्टर्स दैट यू सी व्हिच आर लिंक्ड टू वर्किंग कैपिटल ऑफ दीज कंपनीज।
So these are the 3 key things that matter the most. Then there are a couple of more things which may not be relevant for India right now, but over a period of time may start getting more relevant. First is
हाय इन्वेस्टर्स, वेलकम टू एसओआईसी। तो इस पॉडकास्ट सीरीज में वील बी होस्टिंग मिस्टर सागर आर्या। सो सागर आर्या is actually a friend of mine, and I've been discussing a lot of ideas and insights with him over last couple of years. So he is a co-founder and a founder at Exponent Tribe करके एक SEBI registered PMS है, and his partner is अक्षय जोगानी. Both of them are friends of mine. एंड दोनों से मैं इंडस्ट्री डिस्कशन बहुत करता हूँ, सीखता भी बहुत हूँ। एक्चुअली में इन्वेस्टिंग का अगर हम लैंडस्केप देखते हैं तो इन्वेस्टिंग लैंडस्केप में यंगस्टर्स कम है, स्पेशली इन द प्रोफेशनल वर्ल्ड। सो बोथ सागर एंड अक्षय आर एज बिटवीन 33 to 35, मिड 30s के अंदर है, विच इज़ यंग फॉर द एज ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग। एंड द टाइप ऑफ वर्क दैट दे पुट आउट इज एक्सट्रीमली इंसाइटफुल टू रीड फ्रॉम। So one of the industries that they've done a lot of work on is the aerospace industry. तो aerospace industry पे recently इन्होंने एक 37 पेजर लेटर लिखा था। And in that shareholder letter, they describe the entire industry inside out. So I've attached the link to that letter in the description box below. तो इस लेटर के अंदर दे decode the value chain, they decode the TAM, they decode the Indian players, and they also decode the global players and the opportunities that exist for the Indian players. So इस podcast में हम complex topics of aerospace को break down करेंगे, and इस पॉडकास्ट के थ्रू व्हाट वी विल ट्राई टू डू इज दैट दिस विल बी एन इंडस्ट्री प्राइमर जो आप सब यूज कर पाएंगे फॉर नेक्स्ट मल्टीपल ईयर्स whenever you want to understand the aerospace industry in India. And believe me, this was one of the most insightful podcasts that we did on the channel. If you're excited for this, do drop a hell yes in the comment section below and also drop a welcome Sagar and make sure that you smash the like button. With this, let's start. So hi Sagar, hopefully you're doing well, and we are very excited to have you on this podcast. So idea of this industry specific podcast, the audience knows, is to get to know more about the industry from the people who have looked at the industry very closely. And आज हम एक इंडस्ट्री की बात करेंगे विच आई थिंक यू बीन ट्रैकिंग वेरी क्लोजली फॉर द लास्ट कपल ऑफ इयर्स। आई थिंक आप कुछ रिसेंटली प्लांट विजिट्स भी करके आए थे, एंड यू सॉ द रियल एक्शन हैपनिंग ऑन द ग्राउंड।
right.
इज द एरोस्पेस इंडस्ट्री। सो सागर, स्टार्टिंग विथ व्हाट मेक्स यू एक्साइटेड अबाउट द एरोस्पेस इंडस्ट्री, या फिर एक इन्वेस्टर को एरोस्पेस इंडस्ट्री इस टाइम पे पढ़नी क्यों चाहिए? व्हाई डू यू थिंक सो?
Right. No, first and foremost, Ishmohit, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. You know, I've said this to you privately many times before, but I want to take this opportunity to publicly state that what you've done for our investment community is unparalleled. And I'm very thankful and grateful to you for it. So thank you so much. Coming to the commercial aerospace industry, if you look at the size of the industry, it's a fairly large industry, right? The addressable market is big. So the industry is approximately about $230-250 billion. This is between the OEM market and the MRO market. OEM market basically means new production of aircrafts. MRO is aftermarket. Now, while this market is large and the demand environment right now is fairly supportive, the order books for Airbus and Boeing are at their all-time highs. Since COVID, this company or this industry, in fact, has been facing massive supply chain disruptions. While usually what you see in an industry, when the demand increases, supply also catches up and supply also increases as a result. In aerospace industry, supply has gone in a completely opposite direction. And the reason for this is because of the way this industry is structured currently. About 70 to 75% of this industry is right now present in North America and Europe. And as you might be aware, North America and Europe have been facing structural declines as far as manufacturing is concerned. Aerospace is not an exception to it.
करेंगे इंजीनियर्स ही नहीं मिलते वहाँ पे।
इंजीनियर्स ही नहीं मिलते, और एट द सेम टाइम ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ एरोस्पेस इंडस्ट्री में प्रॉब्लम है. दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम विच इज present across the manufacturing industry, right? But एक aerospace एक ऐसी industry है where shifting supply or dislocating supply from one geography to another geography is extremely difficult. It takes a lot of time to get certifications. It takes a lot of time to scale up. You have to spend a lot of upfront money on capital investment. Hence, a lot of this industry has remained concentrated in the West. While you see an easternization of manufacturing in multiple industries, in this you haven't seen it so far. Now, these companies or these manufacturing industries in these geographies are operating at cost structures which are not viable anymore. Labor cost is high, power cost is high, raw material cost is high. It's not operationally viable for them to operate at these cost structures, and the supply as a result cannot catch up to the demand that is there in the industry. So as a result, there is a clear need for a new geography to come in, for new smaller players to come and substitute the existing supply chain which is present in the market and scale up as a result of the demand that we are seeing in the aerospace industry. This is why the commercial aerospace industry seems very interesting to us, and India is at the forefront of it.
तो सागर, जब हम लोग डिमांड की बात करते हैं, लाइक जस्ट फॉर ऑडियंस टू अंडरस्टैंड इट बेटर, आई थिंक आई वाज जस्ट रीडिंग अ कपल ऑफ आर्टिकल्स, तो उसमें एयरबस है, बोइंग है, लाइक दीज आर द टू मेजर ओईएम्स, फिर आई थिंक बॉम्बार्डियर है एंड एम्ब्रेयर है, कॉमैक चाइना का, राइट? तो कमर्शियल एरोस्पेस में आई थिंक इट इज मेजरली टू डू विद द रीजनल जेट्स, द एंड आल्सो लाइक कंपनीज लाइक बोइंग एंड एयरबस, जो A350 और ये सारे मॉडल्स आते हैं। तो बैकलॉग जो ऑर्डर्स की है, क्योंकि पीछे इंडिगो का फियास्को हुआ, बट कोई नई एयरलाइन अभी स्टार्ट होना चाहे तो कर ही नहीं सकते स्टार्ट।
Yes.
तो ये बैकलॉग कितने सालों का बन चुका है, एंड व्हाई इज इट कि दिस बैकलॉग इज गेटिंग क्रिएटेड? मतलब
Yes.
ऐसा क्यों है कि ये कंपनीज ऑर्डर फुलफिल क्यों नहीं कर पा रही अर्जेंटली?
Yes. No, great question. So, what is demand of aircrafts a function of, right? Let's solve it from first principles, right? So, demand is a function of two things. One is passenger load factor. Think of it as a capacity utilization of fleet, right? And the second is replacement demand. So, if you look at these two drivers, both of them are extremely favorable right now. So, the PLF, the passenger load factor, global level is at about 86%. This is the highest it's ever been.
मतलब बेसिकली कि कितना आपका प्लेन यूटिलाइज हो रहा है,
Utilize
नट चल, राइट?
करेक्ट जैसे आप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्लांट में कैपेसिटी यूटिलाइजेशन देखते हैं, वैसे प्लेन के लिए यू यूज PLFs एज अ की मेट्रिक. So the PLFs globally is at about 86%, the highest it's been historically, right? So whenever PLFs hit about 65-70%, airlines want to place new orders for aircraft. So we are at 86%. The second factor is the replacement of fleet itself, right?
राइट।
So if you look at the average age of fleet which is there in the market right now globally, it's at 15 years. Pre-COVID, this was at 11 years. Now, there's a very strong economic case for replacement demand to also come in.
आई थिंक पीछे वी वर अ कपल ऑफ फ्रेंड्स वर बुकिंग टिकट्स, राइट? सो वी सॉ द प्लेन्स वर इवन एज ओल्ड एज 17, 18 years.
So, in fact, आप अगर देखेंगे इसको, if you look at the average age of fleet,
Right.
again, pre-COVID, it used to be about 6 to 7 years. In 2024, it was 13 years. And the problem is that if you're operating on older fleet, you're using fuel inefficient engines, older generation of engines, your MRO costs are high. And hence the two biggest cost factors for an airline, which is fuel and MRO, is inflated.
राइट।
So it's a very strong economic case for replacement, right? And this reflects in the order book for the duopolies, which is Airbus and Boeing, right? So these two account for about 85% in the commercial aircraft market. The current order backlog for these two entities is about 17,000 in comparison to 12,000 pre-COVID. So that's how the order book has grown.
एंड इसमें एयरबस का ज़्यादा है वर्सेस बोइंग, राइट?
Airbus has been consistently gaining market share from Boeing. Boeing has basically thoda self-inflicted damage hai Boeing ka. They faced a lot of issues with their quality. So you would remember in 2018-19 there was 737 MAX issue.
MCAS इशू जो हुआ था,
Exactly. What about 2 years back there was a door plug blowout.
राइट?
चलते हवा में दरवाजा बाहर निकला है. So I mean this is a disaster. And what happened as a result was that FAA basically said we'll regulate your manufacturing. You cannot manufacture more than 38 737 a year. So it was capped at that level. So Boeing has consistently lost market share as a result, and trust is a big factor which determines which airlines or which OEM would do well between the two. So coming back to the demand, like I said, it's approximately 17,000, and based on the current order backlog,
राइट।
it will take about 13 years for Airbus and Boeing to cater to this demand. Again, in comparison to pre-COVID, this was about 7 years.
इट रन्स ऑल द वे टिल 2040 ऑलमोस्ट।
Yes,
That's crazy.
yes, it's big.
Right.
And the reason for this is simple, right? The reason is that if you see the average time of delivery
Hmm.
for an aircraft, this used to be about 4.8 years. This has gone to 7 years.
Right.
Like I said, the backlogs, I've already mentioned how the time taken to delivery of these backlogs has increased, right? So what is evident from all these data points is that while demand is strong, the supply chain cannot match up.
Hmm.
There's this friction as far as the supply chain is concerned. And I think there is acknowledgement on the part of the industry that this has to be solved, because the industry itself is bearing costs north of $10 billion every year because of delays in aircraft, right? So I'll tell you, there are basically sirf Airbus or Boeing ka nuksan nahi hai. Airliners, like I said, they're operating on older fleet.
Right.
Maintenance cost is high. Fuel cost is high, right? They can't operate on newer generation of engines. Consumers like you and I are paying out of our pockets for airline tickets, right? Because there is limited supply. So the industry as a whole is bearing a massive cost because of this delay in delivery.
I think this type of problem on the supply chain even basically stretches to the engine side of things also.
It's across, okay? So if you look at Airbus and Boeing, every year they've been under delivering their yearly target.
Right.
If you see 2025, Airbus target was 820, 790 delivered. The year earlier, the target was 790, 760 delivered. You go back to 2022, the target was 720, 660 delivered. And the same case, like you said, is also happening in engines. If you look at Pratt and Whitney, they deliver about 800 to 1000. I think approximately that's the number of engines they deliver. The requirement is of 12 to 1300.
Right.
LEAP engine, which
Right.
is the biggest engine, has about 60%, 50%, 60% market share in the
That is
engine market.
Safran and another
Safran and GE.
Right.
Like it's the CFM, it's a JV between the two. They are producing about 1800 engines a year, but the requirement is of 2500 plus. So it's across. And Safran is very clearly stated, publicly acknowledged that the supply chain and the castings players are just not able to catch up to the demand that there is in the market. So the issue is real and structural.
Right. Right. So I think यहाँ पे तो we understood कि why the supply chain crisis is creating opportunity for this industry for even Indian players. Now just before going forward, we believe 2026 like all the other years is a year of learning. And learning क्या होनी चाहिए? जब मार्केट साइडवेज होती है या बेयर मार्केट होती है तो अपने लर्निंग पे और भी ज़्यादा एफर्ट लगाना चाहिए. तो एज अ पार्ट ऑफ SYC मेंबरशिप व्हाट वी डू इज दैट वी हैव डिफरेंट लेवल्स इन द कोर्स. सो लेवल 1 में हम सिखाते हैं ऑल अबाउट फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी एंड हाउ यू कैन बिल्ड योर ओन फाइनेंशियल प्लान. लेवल 2 में भी टीच यू ऑल अबाउट फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस कि फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस डिफरेंट बिजनेसेस का कैसे करें. लेवल 3 में भी टीच यू ऑल अबाउट हाउ टू फाइंड इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यूएशन ऑफ बिजनेसेस, जिसकी हम एक और वर्कशॉप कराने वाले 19th को. एंड इसके साथ साथ लेवल 4 में भी टीच यू व्हेन टू सेल अ स्टॉक. लेवल 5 में भी टीच यू ऑल अबाउट स्क्रीनिंग फॉर बिजनेसेस. एंड लेवल 6 में भी टीच यू अबाउट हाउ टू गो अबाउट सेक्टोरल एनालिसिस या डिफरेंट सेक्टर्स को हम कैसे एनालाइज कर सकते हैं. And as an added bonus, there are two added bonus. कि masterclass in investing using AI is a course that we have made, which is an added part of SYC membership. एंड इसके साथ साथ एक और एडेड बोनस है कि हम एक TVGP करके हमारा एक कोर्स है, थीम वैल्यूएशन ग्रोथ एंड प्रमोटर, जिसमें हम चेकलिस्ट बेस्ड इन्वेस्टिंग अप्रोच सिखाते हैं, विच इज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ द SYC membership under the crash course. And also what we do is that in every 14 to 15 days we just do a top down session कि मार्केट का क्या लगता है, कि what is happening with the stock markets top down, कि इंडेक्स में क्या हो रहा है, अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ में क्या हो रहा है, एंड डिफरेंट सेक्टर्स या हम ब्रॉडली इकोनॉमी में क्या चल रहे हैं. If you want to register for the SYC membership, the link to register is there in the description box below, and you can use a one-time coupon code which will give you one-time discount. With this, let's go back to the video. सागर, यहाँ पे एक क्वेश्चन आता है कि वेस्ट में ऐसे कौन सी सप्लाई चेन चैलेंजेस हो रही है which is leading to the creation of these opportunities, and कैसे कैसे अगर आप एग्जांपल्स दे पाएं कि यार ये प्रॉब्लम्स इस इन सप्लायर्स के साथ चल रही है.
Correct. So, like I mentioned, Mohit, 70 to 75% of supply chain is in North America and Europe. And for reasons we'll discuss later in detail, it's a supply chain which cannot be moved to a different geography easily. There are high entry barriers, there are barriers to scalability, and the certification requirements itself are so stringent to get approval for the certifications, it takes a lot of time. Now, what has happened as a result of these issues or these entry barriers is that the supply chain has stayed in the West, and the West is facing a structural decline in manufacturing. There are 3-4 factors for this. The first and the primary factor is labor. Not only is the labor expensive, the labor is scarce. Both availability भी problem है, cost भी problem है, right? So if you see the median age of machinists in US, it's 50 years.
Hmm.
1/3 of the labor population, as far as machinists is concerned, is going to retire in the next 10 years. And the problem is the younger generation, anyway, there's a demographic issue. It's an aging population. But whatever younger population is there, they're not too keen on working in shop floors.
Right.
सबको hybrid work environment चाहिए. People want freedom. They,
किसी को blue collar job नहीं पसंद.
exactly. सबको जाना है tech में.
Right.
ESOP चाहिए.
Right.
Right. So if there was a survey done by, I think, Oliver Wyman, one of these consultants, where they'd interviewed these forging players in the West, and 70% of the respondents mentioned that labor is the biggest challenge for us.
Hmm.
Now, availability, of course, is a challenge. What happens is that whatever labor that is there, which is employed in this industry right now, which is what the aging population that we spoke about, their bargaining power is obviously increasing as a result because supply constrained hai. And a lot of these labor unions across Europe, across North America, are basically renegotiating for higher wages. There's a very interesting example in 2024. So Boeing is in the Pacific Northwest, right? And as far as US is concerned, वहाँ पे aerospace cluster है. So वहाँ पे labor union renegotiated a contract for wages which essentially increased the labor wage by 40%. Now Boeing is a big company. It has the balance sheet to absorb this, but what it essentially did would reset the wages for all tier 2, 3, tier 3 players which were in that cluster. And they just don't have the balance sheet size to take up these costs.
Right.
Right? So labor has become a big challenge. In fact, in the work that we've done, what we also realize that there are so many family businesses in forgings and castings कि उसमें second generation, third generation आने ही नहीं चाहती.
And इस business पे तो वैसे ही employee cost is big as a percentage of sales.
Exactly. So if you look at Indian companies, no, Indian companies, okay, you look at Dynamatic, you look at Azad, you look at Many, Sansera,
Right.
their employee cost is 15 to 18%.
Correct.
Now imagine our Indian cost is 1/5, actually less than 1/5 of what is there in US. Now imagine the cost structures that these guys are operating at.
Right.
It's a structural problem. It cannot be solved, right? Unless you obviously automate the whole system, which is not possible at this point, right? So labor is a big problem. What happened after COVID was that it coincided with other inflations in cost, right? So raw material cost, for example, increased a lot. Like I said, titanium का example है. Titanium का 20% supply used to come from Russia. There is this company, I keep forgetting their name, VSN कुछ कैसे करके है, right? So you can probably look it up. They are the largest suppliers of titanium ingots in the industry. And in fact, titanium का global supply जो है ना, उसमें से 40% एरोस्पेस में यूज होता है. तो टाइटेनियम का बेसिकली यूज ही ज्यादा
वो
एरोस्पेस,
टर्बाइन बनाने के लिए, वो ब्लेड बनाने के लिए
ब्लेड
तो-
बनाने के लिए
हाँ.
होता है. ब्लेड एंड आल्सो सम स्ट्रक्चर पार्ट्स बिकॉज टाइटेनियम हैज वेरी हाई स्ट्रेंथ. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंड वाज दैट आफ्टर these geopolitical issues where Russia and Ukraine got into a war, obviously there were sanctions on titanium exports, and that really increased the prices of titanium. And one important nuance right now is that I think this is the first time in the history, and somebody was telling me within the industry itself, that this is the first time in the industry that commercial aircraft and military aircraft, both of them are doing well at the same time.
Right.
पहले क्या होता, मिलिट्री का एयरक्राफ्ट का साइकिल अच्छा होता था, कमर्शियल का होता है. राइट नाउ देयर इज बेसिकली एक तो रॉ मटेरियल का सप्लाई वैसे ही कम है, एंड दैट इज बीइंग फॉट फॉर बिटवीन बोथ सिविल यूज एंड मिलिट्री यूज, right? So because of that, raw material prices shot up, and at the same time, specifically for Europe, after the war, the gas prices shot up, the power costs shot up, right? So they went from 10% of their operating cost to about 25%.
Right.
Now, as a result of this, your balance sheets started getting stretched. They started taking up a lot of debt. And like I said, these are cost structures that you just cannot operate at in the West. It's not possible. And we've seen early signs, not even early signs, actually, we've been seeing signs of these fault lines emerge in the manufacturing space in both North America and Europe.
And I think a lot of German companies also ended up going bankrupt because of this.
Lots. I mean, okay, so
Yeah.
let me give you some relevant, some high, big examples here, right? So US में company है Spirit Aerosystems.
Right.
So Spirit जो था basically Boeing का spin-off था. Back in 2005, Boeing spun off this entity separately, saying that we'll outsource manufacturing to Spirit. Spirit just couldn't operate properly. They've been under heavy debt for the longest time, and now recently underwent restructuring where Boeing has basically taken off its business from Spirit, insourced it, and so has Airbus. There's another company, a listed company, called Latecoere. I mean, this is my lame attempt at French. But the way to spell it is Latecoere.
Right.
Now, this is a listed company which is one of the largest manufacturers of doors in the world.
Acha.
So they used to manufacture 3,800 doors back in 2018. They're manufacturing about 2,500 doors now. And their on-time delivery has basically fallen well short of 50%. You just see the stock. There has been clear wealth erosion there. Yeah, and those guys were generating revenue of $800 million in 24, but operating at $64 million net profit, right? And heavily debted. There is this company, AMI Session in US, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. FMI Structures filed for Chapter 11. Triumph and GKN have basically divested their assets. They're relocating their assets.
Right.
So there is abundant examples of where these companies are just falling apart and the manufacturing is just coming to a mere standstill there.
Right. So I think issues in West are creating opportunity for the people who are in the supply chain of it. जो पार्ट्स के अंदर है, कंपोनेंट्स में है, टियर 1 में है, टियर 2 के अंदर है या टियर 3 कंपोनेंट स्पेस के अंदर भी ऑपरेट करते हैं. बट बिफोर आई गो देयर सागर टुवर्ड्स वैल्यू चेन एंड अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर इंडियन प्लेयर्स, एक क्वेश्चन जो बार-बार अराइज करता है इज द चाइना फैक्टर.
Yes.
राइट कि यार अब हर इंडस्ट्री के अंदर देखें तो लगता है कि यार चाइनीज हैव कम इन, दे हैव कॉन्कर्ड द इंडस्ट्री, डेसिमेटेड द इंडस्ट्री, and wherever the opportunities have been created, usually it's because it's a dilemma for the companies to give them orders. कि जैसे हमने ये चीज़ फार्मा में देखी कि पहले जो चाइना की सीडीएमओ कंपनीज थी वो तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग करती थी, फिर वो ड्रग्स इनोवेट भी करने लग गई. तो देन वेस्टर्न कंपनीज के लिए एक डिलेमा क्रिएट होने लग गया कि यार ये तो हमारे कंपेटिटर्स ही बन गया, अब इनको कैसे ऑर्डर्स दे.
Very true.
तो इज समथिंग सिमिलर हैपनिंग इन द एरोस्पेस इंडस्ट्री एज वेल?
No, that's a good question, Ishmoit. So, like you rightly mentioned, China has been the biggest beneficiary of Easternization of manufacturing. This is across industries, chemicals, pharma, electronics, textiles, right? You name it, China has benefited a lot. Now, obviously, we are seeing China plus one factor playing out in all of these industries. And aerospace is actually no different. Now, about 10 to 15% of the supply chain at a global level is in China. And the reason why China became so big was obviously was a very strategic market for the likes of Airbus and Boeing. It was very high percentage of order book for these two OEMs was coming from China, right? So Airbus set up a final assembly line in Tianjin in 2008. Boeing, because of issues between US and China, was slightly delayed in terms of entering China. But what they set up over there in 2017 was a completion center. Now, this is not an assembly line. What completion center means is कि पूरा aircraft ready हो गया है, उसके बाद painting करना, उस पे seats लगाना है, so that you take it to China and you do the installation of these things there. However, if you look at what has been happening in China and what these OEMs have been saying is that China में बहुत intellectual property का theft का हमेशा issue रहा है, जो pharmaceutical में भी हमने CDMO business में भी देखा है, right? And I think both Airbus, Boeing and the engine players also have been very vocal about it. So there was a very interesting thing that happened recently. So the French intelligence recently accused China of knocking down an A320 completely and using that as an inspiration to manufacture their own aircraft. And there's this video is available also on YouTube. So A320 was delivered to China, completely went off records. किसी को पता ही नहीं कहाँ गया. है पता चला तोड़ के they were basically using it to manufacture their own state aircraft, which is called C919.
Right.
There's a company called Comac, which has been funded by the state, of course, by the government, of course. And now C919 has become a formidable competitor to, or is emerging to be a formidable competitor to both Airbus and Boeing. Now, it's a narrow body aircraft, very similar to the 737s and the A320. The order book stands at about 1,000 aircrafts. Only the Chinese authorities have given approval to these aircraft in terms of regulation. EASA and FAA haven't, because they obviously see it as a competition. But what this clearly indicates is that China is not a manufacturing partner anymore. It's a competitor.
Right.
And
खुद भी करना चाहते
खुद भी करना चाहता है. You will very well agree that they'll be able to do it at a much better cost.
हाँ, मतलब करेंगे तो फिर अगर if the quality is good, मतलब that's a big if, because it took them years of accidents for Boeing and Airbus to get the quality right. Boeing की शायद से अभी भी right नहीं है,
Boeing, yeah.
but still it's a very critical industry.
So China doesn't seem a viable option anymore, right? Even though it's decently sized for these OEMs, it's not. And hence, the question then arises, who has the ability to replace China?
And किसके पास engineers और abundant of talent हो,
Absolutely.
human labor हो at least.
Absolutely. This is where India is coming in.
Right.
Right, to your question earlier, कि India is so well positioned to take up a large part of this critical work. And there are many factors that help India in this.
तो यहाँ पे एक क्वेश्चन और आता है सागर की, जैसे मतलब अगर हम इंडियन इंडस्ट्री भी समझते हैं तो इंडिया का इटसेल्फ टैम और इंडिया का इटसेल्फ जो डोमेस्टिक एयरलाइंस है, आई थिंक आज भी एक स्टैट में पीछे ही पड़ रहा था कि आज भी ओनली 3 और 4% ऑफ इंडियंस हैव ट्रैवल्ड ऑन एन एयरक्राफ्ट, एंड अ वेरी फ्यू परसेंटेज होल्ड इवन अ पासपोर्ट. right?
Very true.
And we've seen like Indigo going ahead and booking more than 1,000 planes from Airbus, right?
Yes.
I think every week there'll be a supply of a plane for the till 2030 at least.
Yes.
तो locally industry की demand create जो हो रही है, how big of a factor that is in terms of create of having some sort of localization? Maybe it starts from MRO, then it spills over to MRO parts or other supply chain parts.
Yes. Very relevant question. First and foremost, as far as the order books for Airbus and Boeing is concerned, India is the second largest market there after
Right.
US, and China is the third largest. But what's important is also that it's the fastest growing market in that. So India का अगर हम current order backlog देखें between Air India, Indigo, SpiceJet, etc., it stands at about 1,800 to 1,900.
Right.
And as a result, India has become a very strategic market for the likes of Airbus and Boeing.
So total orders given by Indian airliners is close
Yes.
to 18,1900,
Yes.
and overall backlog is 16 to 17,000 planes.
So about 10 to 12% is what you should assume.
It's a huge number, right?
That's a big number.
Yeah.
That's a big number. So which is why Indian market has become quite critical, right? And जैसा आपने कहा कि now the ecosystem has to be established in India, not just for new aircraft, but also for the MRO market.
Correct.
The MRO market is also now picking up in India, right? So you have to ensure that the supply chain is there where you get the spare parts on time. If you don't, if you have to ship spare parts and import them every time, then how
Right.
will the MRO market pick up, right? So that is a big factor that is driving or at least incentivizing Airbus and Boeing to set up supply chain in India. And one very interesting thing that has happened in India is that at least the current players that we will talk about later are tried and tested. So India में क्या हुआ ना? India is also a large military buyer from Airbus and Boeing. So P-8 Poseidon from Boeing, Apache helicopters, C-295 for Airbus, right?
Right.
So whenever the military would buy these aircraft from Airbus and Boeing, there was an offset obligation, as you'd be aware, right? Where some part of the value add has to be done within the country itself.
Right.
It used to be 30%, now it's 40%. Now, as a result of these offset obligations, a lot of these Indian players entered aircraft manufacturing, and Boeing and Airbus actually experimented with them.
Right.
Where जैसे Russell Texas हो गया, it's a wiring harness company. पूरा उसका जो order आया था offset की वजह से आया था. Dynamatic is a company which manufactures parts for P-8 because of offset obligations, right? So they are tried and tested, and Airbus and Boeing now know, okay, not only this is a critical market, but there are suppliers who are tried and tested in this market who can scale up for our work.
And I think the seriousness of these companies also shows up कि I think Tata के साथ जो अभी एक सब assembly भी setup हुई है their first time.
Very true, yes. So C295 का final assembly line आया है with Tata, Airbus and Tata. And more importantly, about 3 days back, Adani signed a contract with Embraer for a final assembly line. Like the first time a commercial aircraft ka final assembly line is coming to India.
But that's more of a regional jet, right?
That's a regional jet.
Yeah.
But it's important.
Where it's very important. कहीं से तो start करोगे.
Correct. It's a Brazilian aircraft, but India में पहली बार अभी commercial aircraft का final assembly line setup हो रहा है. So these are all signs that things are picking up in India, right? And I'll tell you what is even more important. एक तो India is a strategically important market.
Right.
What is more important is that India has the skill sets, okay, to scale up this critical and quality work that aerospace requires. What's important for aerospace, if you look at it in terms of the process required of manufacturing, would be forging, casting, machining,
Right.
sub-assembly. And India has a thriving auto ancillary industry. It has a massive auto ancillary industry. So the skill sets that these companies have in auto ancillary are replicable and transferable to aerospace, obviously with some upgrades.
तुमने देखा है कि काफी ऑटो वाले ही इस इंडस्ट्री में आने लग गए हैं.
एग्जैक्टली तो आप करंट लिस्टेड स्पेस में देख लें मैनी ऑटो से एरोस्पेस डायनामेटिक हाइड्रोलिक्स ऑटो से एरोस्पेस सनसेरा ऑटो से एरोस्पेस महिंद्रा ऑटो से एरोस्पेस
I think another biggest example is Motherson Sumi.
with CIM tools. Absolutely. So they've also come from auto to aerospace, right? So there is a very clear trend that you're seeing here. There are existing auto ancillary players who are moving into aerospace, but obviously the level of precision required for aerospace is higher. So they will have to upgrade their DNA, they'll have to upgrade their shop floors. But it is a transferable skill set.
तो सागर अभी तो हमने बड़े अच्छे से हमें पूरी ऑडियंस को समझाया अबाउट द वेस्टर्न सप्लाई चेन क्राइसिस, हाउ बॉटलनेक्स आर गेटिंग क्रिएटेड, द चैलेंज विद चाइना, एंड कैसे इंडिया में धीरे धीरे ये इंडस्ट्री क्रिएट हो रही है. बट इफ़ यू हैव टू गो डीपर कि अगर हम इंडिया के लिए जो टाइम क्रिएट हो रहा है, अगर हम इसको बेसिकली और नंबर्स के टर्म में बात करें, एंड कौन सी दो सब सेक्टर ऑफ इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए टाइम क्रिएट हो रहा है, आई थिंक दैट विल ऑल्सो गिव अस मोर आइडिया कि कैसे हम यहाँ पे अपॉर्चुनिटीज अच्छे से ढूंढ पाएंगे.
Sure. So जैसा हमने डिस्कस किया the overall market when we started, we said the overall market is approximately $250 billion. और ये मार्केट न्यू प्रोडक्शन मार्केट और आफ्टर मार्केट दोनों इंक्लूड करती है, सो विच मीन्स OEMs as well as MRO market. If you look at the OEM market out of this $250 billion, that would be about $120 to $130. I mean, there are certain assumptions now that we've made to calculate the addressable market. So if you see the gross margins that these companies make, करीबन 15% के आसपास gross margin बनाते हैं जो, and the way they also calculate cost of goods sold in the West is they include labor as well there. So there have to be
Yeah.
certain assumptions that go into this. So out of the remaining 85%, it's fair to assume 70% is components, 30% is labor. Then MRO also, 130 ये है, $120 billion का MRO market हुआ. MRO market also has labor component and the components as well. Over there also, let's make a similar assumption that 70% is components and 30% is labor. Now, if you add up these two, this culminates to about $150 billion
Right.
as the addressable market. And if you currently look at what these companies are procuring from India, they are procuring about $2 billion, approximately $1 billion each from Airbus and Boeing. I'm not including the likes of GE, Pratt, etc. They are also obviously increasing their uptick from India, right? So that is the addressable market for the Indian players. And I think one interesting thing that I forgot to mention was that Airbus और Boeing तो कर भी रहे हैं.
Hmm.
Pratt and Whitney wants to increase its procurement from India to $150 million. अभी zero है.
Hmm.
साफरान यहाँ पे MRO शॉप सेट कर रहा है.
I think Leap Engines का कोई facility भी लगा रहे हो.
करेक्ट, लीप इंजन का बना रहे हैं, राइट. जी वर्नोवा ने 50x इंक्रीज किया है अपना प्रोक्योरमेंट. एंड अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग इंडिकेटर दैट एक्चुअली एयरबस हैज आल्सो गिवन इज दैट दे बेसिकली their ex global procurement officer is now the MD of India. Now this directionally tells you how strategically important the Indian market is
Hmm.
for Airbus as well, right? So it's the uptick is across the value chain. OEMs in aircraft, avionics, OEMs in engines, OEMs in landing structures, all of them are procuring from India.
Right. Right. So out of $150 billion, अभी $2 billion के आसपास का इंडिया से प्रोक्योरमेंट हो रहा है. एंड आई थिंक दिस हैज आल्सो ग्रोन एक्सपोनेंशियली सिंस कोविड ईयर्स.
Correct.
तो यहाँ पे सागर क्वेश्चन आता है कि ग्लोबली इस इंडस्ट्री की तो अभी तक हमने पूरा नीड फॉर क्रिएशन समझी. अब वैल्यू चेन क्या है एंड वैल्यू चेन के साथ साथ ग्लोबली व्हाट आर द बैरियर्स टू एंट्री इन दिस, बिकॉज वट एवर आई हैव लुक्ड एट इन द वैल्यू चेन वहाँ पे दिखता है 2 प्लेयर है, 3 प्लेयर है, 4 प्लेयर्स ही है.
Yes.
मतलब 5वां 6वां प्लेयर ही नहीं दिखता काफी बारी.
Yes. No, it's a great question, and this is what excites us the most about the aerospace industry. जो ये इंडस्ट्री है ना, like we mentioned initially, the reason why the supply chain hasn't shifted is because barriers to entry are very high. And I'll tell you how this works exactly, right? So, how do you scale up in an aerospace manufacturing business? First and foremost, you spend a lot of money upfront to set up capacities. बड़ा खर्चा करना होता है एक बड़ी कैपेसिटी सेटअप करने के लिए. You can't just have 3-4 CNC machines and say that we'll scale up. You'll have to have a very large space, and Airbus and Boeing and the likes of other engine OEMs have to see that space and your ability to scale. So there's a big upfront capital investment that takes place, right? So to set up the capacity itself takes about 18 months. After that, you have to get certified. There is something known as AS9100 certifications. जैसे pharma में US FDA होता है. Similarly, in aerospace, you have AS9100. It's not as stringent as US FDA, but you have to have traceability, you have to have the right documentation, you have to have the right quality systems. This certification itself take about 6 to 8 months. अगर आप उसमें surface treatment कर रहे हो तो आपको NADCAP certification भी चाहिए होता है. That's another 10 months. So you'll spend about a year or more in getting those certifications. Then you'll do business development. You'll ask these customers to come in, view your facilities. If they're satisfied, what they'll tell you is, okay, you know what, you manufacture simple parts for me, but I'll only give you an order if you complete something known as FAI, First Article Inspection. It is very important in this industry. What this means is that the vendor will develop a part with say for example Airbus, and Airbus will test it out. अगर
Right.
उसको product ठीक लगा, that will then convert into a purchase order, which will scale up over a period of time. And the purchase order also scales up very gradually. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको कॉम्प्लेक्स पार्ट से सीधा चालू कर देंगे या फिर कॉम्प्लेक्स असेंबली देंगे या फिर आपको एरो स्ट्रक्चर्स देंगे. वो तो मतलब बहुत दूर की बात है. दिल स्टार्ट विद वेरी सिंपल पार्ट्स. दिल गिव यू 2% ऑफ द बिजनेस, 3% ऑफ द बिजनेस, स्लोली ग्रेजुअली इंक्रीज टू 30-40. With years, as you showcase more ability to or demonstrate more ability to scale up and meet the quality standards, that's when they'll start giving you complex work which is required in aerospace and then move to assemblies, right? So it takes a lot of time, and which is also why actually the current incumbents, if you see in the industry, जो अभी existing players है, they have gone through the grind. and they will benefit disproportionately as a result because उनको नया facility setup करना नहीं है, उनका already वो सब they've gone through the certification, they've
Right.
gone through, जैसे मैंने बोला offset में वो already participate कर चुके हैं, तो existing players को बहुत बड़ा फायदा होने वाला है.
Because to set up a plant and just to go through the certification experience and then to see ramp up of volumes, I think anywhere between 3 to 6 years की journey होगी for any company to get involved there.
इनफैक्ट अगर आप एरो स्ट्रक्चर सोचे, बिकॉज इंडिया में सबसे बड़ा अपॉर्चुनिटी एरो स्ट्रक्चर्स में है. जो लार्ज एरो स्ट्रक्चर्स का जो असेंबली का काम है उसको 15 साल लगता है आने को. लिस्टेड स्पेस में सिर्फ एक ही कंपनी कर रही है, डायनामेटिक.
Right.
Nobody else is doing it. It's taken them, so they started in 2008, they're doing it now after 17 years. Right? So to get to that stage is extremely difficult. In fact, if you start fresh and if you want to quantify your chances of scaling up to aerostructures initially, the answer is zero. हो ही नहीं सकता.
Right. Right. So I think that is what makes us excited as investors कि whichever company has cracked this space, तो उस कंपनी ने एंट्री बैरियर तो बना लिया अपने लिए.
करेक्ट.
तो हमें देखना है कि वॉल्यूम बिजनेस की स्केल हो रही है नहीं हो रही.
करेक्ट.
तो
और दूसरा इसमें मोहित, सिंस यू रेज दिस पॉइंट, एक और चीज़ क्या होता है, एज इन्वेस्टर्स हम देखते हैं एंट्री बैरियर, दूसरा हम देखते हैं लॉन्जेविटी.
राइट.
इस इंडस्ट्री में लॉन्जेविटी बहुत स्ट्रांग है. इट्स वन ऑफ दोज रेयर इंडस्ट्रीज which has entry barriers and very high visibility. So what do I mean by that? For example, let's say you're embedded into a program like A320. A320 1987 में पैरा डिलीवरी हुआ था. That program is going to be relevant next year and then next decade, and then after that you'll also have replacement demand coming from it. It's not like auto कि आपके programs refresh हो रहे हैं और नए programs में नए suppliers आ सकते हैं. अगर आप A320 की value chain में if you're embedded, then you're in it for the next 40-50 years. And that visibility is absent in most industries. This is the longest visibility cycle in manufacturing industry.
आई थिंक जो प्लेन के मॉडल्स भी बहुत लेट जाके अपडेट होते हैं. आई
Yes.
थिंक उसमें भी फिर वो फ्यूल एफिशिएंट और ले आएंगे जैसे A320 neo आ
नहीं
गया.
आ गया. Correct. And engines के लिए भी this is also true.
Hmm.
Right, you had the CFM earlier, then you went to LEAP. They have a very long life and duration of the program.
I think what was shocking for me to read recently was कि एक ऑटो का जो आजकल सॉफ्टवेयर होता है that has more million lines of code versus aerospace
Yes.
versus a commercial aircraft.
Correct.
That type of longevity I think also can be there in this industry.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The industry structure is very attractive, which is why for investors it's going to become a very interesting space. You know, we often debate multiple महंगा है, समझो कि multiple महंगा है. This is why the multiple is high.
Right.
Right, because it's just an industry structure which is so attractive and has such good economics, at the same time has such high longevity that, I mean, if someone's expecting to get these companies at 15 PE, 20 PE,
आई थिंक लिस्टेड स्पेस में जो एक कोरिलेशन में ड्रॉ कर पाता हूँ इस इंडस्ट्री को बढ़ने के बाद इज दैट विद द CDMO सेक्टर
exactly.
कि पहले आप प्लांट लगाओ,
Yes,
फिर उसके बाद पहले US FDA अप्रूवल लाओ,
exactly.
कस्टमर के साथ बैक एंड फोर्थ करो, आपके प्लांट का ऑडिट होएगा.
Yes,
तो फ्रॉम स्क्रैच टिल स्केलिंग इट टू अ डिसेंट साइज बिजनेस it takes anywhere between 7 to 12 years के बीच पे for a CDMO company.
absolutely. And I'll tell you what's even more interesting. So CDMO, like you rightly said, is one of the most attractive industries out there. But CDMO में भी when you're partnering up with an innovator for a molecule, you don't know how the molecule of life will happen. और वो molecule का patent life 10 साल होता है. यहाँ पे 40-50 साल है. And you know exactly how that model will work. So visibility even compared to CDMO is higher in aerospace. And CDMO itself, no doubt, is a very attractive industry structure.
राइट. तो सागर ये तो समझ आया कि टाइम भी हमें समझ आया, आई थिंक ऑडियंस को भी. तो यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन आता है, सो व्हाट्स द वैल्यू चेन लाइक? पहले तो बात करते हैं ग्लोबल वैल्यू चेन की एंड फिर इंडियन वैल्यू चेन की बात करते हैं.
So if you look at the value chain, at the top you have the airframers, which is Airbus and Boeing, right? The aircraft manufacturers. You also have the likes of Embraer and Dassault, which are regional and business jets, so they are at the top. After that you have tier 1 system suppliers. यहाँ पे आपके engine players आते हैं, aerostructures players आते हैं, landing gear players आते हैं, avionics के players आते हैं. Post that you have tier 2 and tier 3, which is component and sub-assembly players, right? And I'll give you examples of it as we get to that stage. And the fourth, the last bottom tier is the raw material stage, which are suppliers of the various raw materials to these forging companies. So starting with the top one, which is the top player, which is airframers, it is a global duopoly. Airbus and Boeing, like we discussed, is 80-85% of the market. You have other commercial companies like Embraer, which is a Brazilian company, Dassault, which is a French company, same company that manufactures Rafale jets. Dassault business jet hai, Embraer regional jet hai. This is a very difficult industry to dislodge, right? It's very difficult for a new player to come in because A, you need very, very high capital to get into this industry. B, you need government support. So if you look at Airbus and Boeing, both basically have come off an area of very high consolidation in 1980s and 1990s, where यहाँ पे duopoly हुआ है और हमेशा गवर्नमेंट का सपोर्ट रहा है. Airbus is a French company supported by the European government, यूरोप का प्राइड है. Boeing is US का प्राइड.
इसलिए नेशनल चैंपियंस काफी बारी कहते हैं और
एग्जैक्टली
गवर्नमेंट बचाने आ जाती है जब कोई प्रॉब्लम हो.
एग्जैक्टली तो मतलब इसमें घुसना ही बहुत मुश्किल है. जो एम्ब्रेयर था, दैट्स वाज सपोर्टेड बाय द Brazilian government. Right, it was a military aircraft company. It was supported by the Brazilian government to make commercial aircraft. Comac, like we discussed, supported by the Chinese government, right?
अगर इंडिया को भी इनोवेशन करनी थी मिलिट्री एयरक्राफ्ट में, वो सर्टेन एक्सटेंट HAL इज आल्सो अ गवर्नमेंट ओन्ड एंटिटी.
Yes.
पूरी डिलीवर हो प्लेन्स.
हाँ, पहले Tejas deliver हो जाए, hopefully, and then that is where they're entering. But interestingly, slightly deviating here a bit, but अभी जो AMCA आ रहा है इंडिया का, उसमें प्राइवेट पार्टिसिपेशन बहुत बढ़ गया है. A lot of these private players are now participating, where Adani हो गया, Dynamatic हो गया, Tata हो गया, BHEL हो गया. All these companies are coming in assembling planes, right? So
Right.
that's on the military side. Commercial में तो इंडिया के लिए बहुत ही मुश्किल है इसमें जाना. तो this is why this has been a very consolidated market. और इसमें जैसा आपने बोला, Airbus has been gaining market share as compared to Boeing, and we've discussed those reasons already. So that is the top of the value chain, airframes. Now their core activity of these airframers is to take parts from systems and assemble it at their final assembly line. They outsource a lot of manufacturing to the system suppliers, but all they do is basically integrate. सामान आया, engine आया, wings आए, fuselage आए, उसको final assembly line में integrate कर दिया. That's their core activity. They buy these systems from tier 1 suppliers. Good way to understand this is to look at the cost of an aircraft. Let's say A320, the price would be about $120-130 million, not accounting for discounts here. Usme se, if you see what are the systems that are present in an aircraft, about 30 to 35% will be engines. Engines and nacelle. Nacelle basically is the outer layer or the casing around the engine, right? So that's the propulsion system. About 25 to 30% is aerostructures. Aerostructures में आप आते हैं fuselage, wings, tail, right? These are the things that go into aerostructures. Then you have avionics, the cockpit systems, the navigation systems, the communication systems, flight controls. All of that come in avionics. Then you have landing gear, right? Avionics about 10 to 12%. Landing gear is again जो नीचे से निकलता है, which takes the burden of the aircraft when you're landing. That's about 5 to 8%. Then you have interiors, which is जहाँ पे बैग रखते हैं, seats हो गया, that's about 10%. And then you have others, which would be wiring harness, hydraulic systems, etc., right? But these would be the main components or the systems of an aircraft. And a very, again, defining feature of this value chain is that this is also a very consolidated value chain.
Right.
So for example, in engines, there are top 3 or 4 players: Rolls-Royce, Safran, GE, and Pratt & Whitney, dominating almost 100% of the market. In aerostructures, the top 4 or 5 players would be 60% of the market. In avionics, you have players like Thales, Collins, Honeywell.
Right.
They would be about, again, top 5-6 would be about 60% of the market. In landing gear, Safran and Collins are the leaders. The top 3 would be 70% of the market. And the reason why, again, this is a consolidated market is because there is IP involved here. जो engine हो गया, there is product IP involved here. It's not, again, easy to dislodge these companies. Same would be the case for avionics and landing gear, etc., right? So which is why you see the market share is consolidated. Aerostructures is also consolidated, but that is consolidated for a different reason. Aerostructures में क्या होता है, मान लीजिए आपको fuselage बनाना है एक plant में, you will put a lot of jigs and fixtures and structural assemblies to install the fuselage on and then supply it, right? It takes a lot of time. Manufacturing jigs and fixtures itself takes about 2-3 years. You can't shift the supply chain. So वो काम अगर एक company के पास रहता है, it sticks to that company until unless they screw up on their manufacturing, right? But that is the key defining feature of tier 1. The only opportunity within all the components that we've discussed so far that India will have as far as getting into a tier 1 supplier is concerned,
Right.
is aerostructures. Because aerostructures is a manufacturing heavy process. It's not supported by intellectual property or patent technology, right? क्योंकि आपके structure में you can't innovate a lot.
Right.
So that is the key opportunity for Indian players. And some companies are getting orders for doors, for fuselage, etc.
Flat track beams और ये सब.
Flat track beams comes in sub-assemblies,
सब assemblies पे.
right? So, okay, I'll just to give you an example, how does this work, right? So, जैसे flat track beams का ले लेते हैं.
हाँ.
एक flat track beam में 20 different components होते हैं. individually you're making 20 different components. When you take these 20 components, you assemble them, it's called sub-assembly,
Right.
which is tier 2, like we discussed, right? So that sub-assembly is a flap track beam. This flap track beam is given to a Safran, which is a tier 1 player. That Safran will take this flap track beam and fix it in the wings and then supply the wings to Airbus. Right? That's how the value chain and the examples work. So like I said, across airframers ho gaya, then you have tier 1, then you have tier 2 and tier 3. This is where a lot of Indian companies are coming in, right? So tier 2 and tier 3 is basically, tier 2 is sub-assembly work, tier 3 is component work, right? In some cases, the same player will be doing both. In some cases, it will be different. So for example, the flap track beam example that we took, Dynamatic manufactures these flap track beams. It manufactures the components and also does sub-assembly work, right? So it's a tier 2 plus a tier 3 player. The key activities involved in this value chain as far as component manufacturing is concerned is A, forging के बाद machining के बाद surface treatment.
Right.
तो इसमें क्या होता है, आप raw material लेते हैं, you take ingots, you forge them into net near shapes. But in aerospace, you require very, very precise, very high dimensional tolerances. So वो net near shape is not good enough. You have to machine it. Edges rough होते हैं, उसको निकालना होता है, shiny part बनाना
मतलब
होता है,
एकदम प्रिसाइज होना चाहिए.
एकदम precise होना चाहिए. The tolerance level in aerospace, the dimensional tolerance is as low as 5 microns.
So this is what precision engineering is.
This is what precision engineering is, right? I mean, for context, your human hair is 70 microns.
Right.
You're talking about 1/14th
Of the human hair.
of human hair, right? जो आपके blades बनते हैं, that's 5 micron level
Right.
tolerances that you require, right? So that is done using machining, right? And then once you machine it, उसके बाद, since these components and assemblies are flying in very harsh environments, you have to make them more rigid, you have to make them stronger, उन पे coating लगाना होता है, thermal barrier लगाना होता है. That is surface treatment. So all of this work is done by component manufacturers. Once you manufacture a component, you take different components, assemble it, it's a sub-assembly of a subsystem. That is basically tier 3 and tier 2. And this is where a lot of these Indian companies would come in because this is a very manufacturing intensive
Right.
part of the value chain. And after this, after tier 2 or tier 3 are the raw material suppliers. Raw material mein, the kind of raw material that you use is a function of 3 or 4 things. It's a function of strength, function of cost, function of weight, and function of melting points. So the primary raw materials that you use in aerospace are aluminium, steel, titanium, and superalloys. Aluminium is mostly used in structures because it's lightweight, has decent strength, and is very cost effective. For landing gear, you can't use aluminium because aluminium does not have the strength to hold the weight of the plane. I mean, one A320 would weigh about 150,000 pounds. So over there, you use a material like steel.
Right.
Steel has higher strength and ability to withstand higher weight than aluminium. Then you have titanium, which is 40% lighter than steel and 60% more strength than aluminium. Titanium is used primarily in engines.
Right.
क्योंकि titanium का melting point भी ज़्यादा होता है.
तो ब्लेड्स में यूज होता है.
Exactly. Blades in the cold section of the engine, which is the compressor side, right? So over there, titanium is used, and it's a very effective material for areas where the melting point, where the heat is higher, right? And then at the last, you have superalloys, which is basically Inconel, nickel, and cobalt, right? These sort of superalloys, which are used in the hot section of engine. These are heavy materials, very costly, but there is no other substitute to it because in the hot section of an engine, the temperature rises to about 1500.
Right.
उसमें aluminium, steel, titanium सब melt हो जाता है. So, which is why you have to use a material like Inconel. So, this is the value chain of the industry.
Very interesting. So I think airframers, tier 1 companies, consolidated market, and tier 2, tier 3 companies जो है वहाँ पे Indian players के लिए opportunities exist करती है. And then there are the raw material suppliers.
Yes.
This is how the industry is basically mapped out as.
Yes.
तो Indian players की बात करते हैं, I think we'll be focusing more on the tier 2 and tier 3
Yes.
sub segment, right? तो Indian players कौन-कौन से exist करते हैं? क्या-क्या मतलब उनकी capabilities हैं? कौन-कौन से products में operate कर रहे हैं? So if you can throw some light on that.
Yes. So, I'll stick to the listed space. And if you look at the listed space, like I said, most players are present in tier 2 and tier 3. There is one player emerging in tier 4, which is PTC Industries.
Right.
But apart from that, most players would be in tier 2 and tier 3. And Dynamatic is in tier 1 as well,
Right.
where they've basically received orders for fuselage and doors. So, starting with Dynamatic. So if you look at Dynamatic, their total sales is about 1,500 crores. And I'm talking about FY25 numbers, out of which 600 crores comes from aerospace. Now, this aerospace business does ROC above about 20% and it does about EBITDA of between 25 to 30%. What Dynamatic does is quite interesting, right? So Dynamatic actually entered aerospace through an acquisition in 2008, where they started manufacturing these flat track beams that we just spoke about. And they were initially supplying to only Spirit Aerosystems, but over a period of time, they started supplying directly to Airbus. The reason they started doing this and they got into this was because एक flap track beam में 200 components होते थे. What Dynamatic did is that it basically sat with Airbus, redesigned the product into a more monolithic structure, and reduced the number of components from 200 to 20.
Right.
And as a result, became the single source supplier of these flap track beams globally. It's a single source for A320, single source for A330 programs. So that is the genesis of Dynamatic. Over a period of time, Dynamatic has also done, it has started manufacturing large aerostructures.
Right.
So on the military side, it's been working and doing aerostructures for a long time, but very recently, it has entered aerostructures for commercial aircraft as well. So they won an order from Dassault for Falcon 6X, जहाँ पे वो fuselage बना रहे हैं. And one of the biggest orders that they received, or any Indian company has received, is the doors for A220. तो A220 के जो 8 दरवाजे हैं, all 8 doors, is being given to Dynamatic. The current supply chain is in China. Dynamatic will be slowly ramping that up. So Dynamatic is a company which is basically present from forgings to large assemblies. And one of the rare companies in India who is present across the value chain here.
Right. I think the promoter is also very active on Twitter. So we also keep seeing the R&D videos he keeps putting. Even drones can that the company is doing something right now.
Yes.
Right. So, but Dynamatic is emerging as a tier 1 player.
Yes,
Right.
it's emerging as a tier 1 player with fuselage and doors.
What about other companies, Sagar?
So you have companies like Azad Engineering then. Now Azad Engineering does about 450 crores of revenue and generates about 80 crores from the aerospace segment, right? The genesis of Azad is the industrial gas turbine business, जहाँ पे वो जो turbine engines होते हैं, उसमें stationary और rotating blade दोनों बनाते हैं. इनको airfoils कहते हैं. Airfoil is basically the shape of the product that they're manufacturing. And Azad has done phenomenally well there because this is again a technology which is with very limited number of players. In fact, a good way to understand Azad is to look at this company called Howmet.
Right.
Howmet Aerospace is the largest manufacturer of blades. It also does blades for turbine, which Azad is not into. But think about it this way. Howmet has facilities in the West and the EBITDA margin that it generates, despite having manufacturing in the West, is about 30%. Right? That's the sort of economics that these businesses enjoy.
Right.
On a yearly basis, they do about $3 to $4 billion of sales, right? So Azad is basically going in that direction where Howmet is, but obviously is very small right now. What they're essentially doing is that they're using their skill set that they have so far implemented in gas turbine to jet engines, or aircraft engines. The technology is very much similar. Like I said, the certification requirements are different. And over here, they've signed contracts with Rolls-Royce. They've signed contracts with Safran. They've signed contracts with Pratt & Whitney. So basically all three large engine players. And right now they're undergoing a lot of testing and approvals. तो सबसे ज़्यादा टेस्टिंग अप्रूवल का टाइमलाइन लगता है इंजन प्लेयर्स में. वो 2-3 साल लेते हैं. Pratt & Whitney का तो खुद का इंटरनल सर्टिफिकेशन सिस्टम है. It's called LCS. Right? So it's not easy to go through the stringent.
मिशन क्रिटिकल भी तो बहुत ज्यादा ही है.
It's very mission critical. In
कुछ
fact,
भी पार्ट खराब प्रॉब्लम बहुत नेक्स्ट लेवल हवा में कैसे चेंज करोगे.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So that is where Azad is heading towards. It is present from forging to sub-assembly, but it does not do surface treatment in-house.
Right.
It recently acquired a company called VTC Technologies, which is doing surface treatment. पहले क्या होता कि आपका पार्ट बनता था, surface treatment के लिए बाहर जाता था, फिर वापस आता.
Right.
But now they started to do surface treatment in-house as well with the acquisition of VTC Technologies. And that is something that Azad will slowly scale up.
I think another thing that you mentioned earlier in the podcast was कि auto companies जो aerospace में आ रही है. I think one of the companies, another one that is there is Sansera Engineering, right?
That's right.
तो Sansera Engineering क्या कर रही है? I think उनका एक ADS business है. तो exactly aerospace में क्या कर रही है? And how is that business scaling up?
Yes. So Sansera Engineering does a top line of about 3,000 crores. उसमें से 130 crores come from this business that you've spoken about, which is aerospace, defense, and semiconductors. Now, this is a very interesting business. If you look at Sansera itself, Sansera does all manufacturing of machines in-house. It's one of the rare forging companies that manufacture CNC machines in-house. And as a result, their efficacy in tooling is extremely high. Right? Their operations, their tooling, the processes that they have is one of the best in the industry. So using that skill set that they use in auto really well, they're now scaling up the aerospace and semiconductors business.
Right.
In aerospace, they do basic components and assemblies, right? So they are in actuators, they're in hydraulics, they are in interiors. But incrementally, Sansera, if you see, used to cater to the likes of tier 2 players, that is Triumph and Saab. Now, incrementally, they've signed a contract with Airbus, they have a direct relationship with the OEMs and are now scaling up with them, right? So the company is scaling up fairly well in this division. So it's a 130 crore revenue as of today, and the management has aspirations to scale this up to 1,000 crores by FY28 and 29, right? And like we said, the current order book, by the way, the current order book for Sansera that has to be executed by 2030 is 4,000 crores.
Right.
So they have the visibility to scale this up. And again, just like Azad, Sansera is also now spending money on surface treatment to do it in-house because that basically increases their ability to take larger orders. So Sansera is very well known for faster turnaround times and clearing FAIs, first article inspections, fairly quickly. So that's where Sansera is positioned, right from forging, doing machining, surface treatment, and incrementally, they're not doing sub-assemblies right now, incrementally getting into sub-assemblies. So that's the positioning of Sansera.
And Boeing, Airbus, both are the customers, right?
So Boeing has been a customer for them for a long time. Incrementally, Airbus is also coming in as a customer. And this business does about 25 to 30% EBITDA versus about 15 to 18% what they do in the
auto
business.
Right.
So the perception of the business will change as they scale this aerospace business.
Apart from this, I think the Rossel, Texas, I think you also spoke about briefly. Then there's Unimec Aerospace. Acres is there. Acres is a big player, I think.
Correct.
Right. So just throw some light on the other players as well.
Sure. So Unimec is actually a tooling business.
Right.
तो अगर आप बाकी बिजनेस देखें वो कंपोनेंट्स बनाते हैं विच आर फ्लाइंग पार्ट्स यूनिमेक डज नॉट मेक फ्लाइंग पार्ट्स इट मेक्स टूलिंग नाउ व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज टूलिंग अब जैसा मैंने कहा कि अगर आप कोई फ्यूजलाज बनाते हैं या डोर्स बनाते हैं यू नीड स्ट्रक्चर्स एंड जिग्स फॉर यू टू इंस्टॉल डोर्स एंड टेस्ट डोर्स on those structures and jigs, right? So that's what Unimec manufactures, the tools. Now let's say in the aftermarket you have an engine खराब हो गया, you have to take it to the MRO bay. You will take out the engine, put it on a ground support equipment, right, or a transportation stand, which is the tool that is required to hold the engine. You will take it to the MRO bay. You have a work stand there जहाँ पे engine लगता है. So that is another tool. And then you have fixtures which will be used to disassemble the engine, right? So these are all tools that come in to make flying parts. They're not flying parts.
It's like the kit of a carpenter.
Exactly. Exactly like that. So that is what Unimec does. And if you look at their 25 revenue, they did about 250 crores. A lot of this revenue comes from the tooling business.
But they have massive SKUs, right?
The number of SKUs that Unimec makes is 3,000, right? 3,000 plus. And that is also a challenge of scalability in this business, right? If you compare the nature of work that Unimec does versus other companies are in long-term programs.
Right.
If you're manufacturing component right now, you'll have to manufacture it again next year, then the year after that. The problem with tooling is that demand is very ad hoc and it's not a recurring demand. Right? अगर मैंने आज एक tooling बना दिया, I'll reuse the same fixture and tooling for production next year as well. I wouldn't require new tooling for it unless I'm increasing my production itself. Therefore, the visibility a company like Unimec has on its order book is barely weeks and sometimes in months, right? So it's very ad hoc, and as a result, the number of SKUs is also very high.
Right.
So unlike its peers, which are doing flying parts, are in longer term programs, we feel, and we could be wrong here, that Unimec is going to struggle to scale up this tooling business. And I think there is some realization on the part of the management as well, where if you look at their FY29 target,
1,000 crores का, right?
1,000 crores. उसमें से वो कह रहे हैं 600 crores will come from nuclear and semiconductor, whereas tooling will scale from 250 to about 400 crores. Right? So there is acknowledgement on part of the management that this is not an easy business to scale.
Right. So I think those are the challenges. I think that is what decoding the value chain means.
Exactly.
Right. So then there are, I think, another company which recently got listed is Acus.
Right.
But that has almost quite a big aerospace business in that.
So in the listed space, Acus is the largest.
Right.
They do about 800 crores of revenue from aerospace and about 100 crores from consumer and toys, right? Now, Acus has a fairly diversified portfolio. They're primarily present in structures. They do more than 4,500 SKUs, which is the largest in the listed space, right? And these are smaller parts that they're manufacturing. These structures go into aero structures. Some of them go into landing gear and engine structures as well. The turning point for Acus actually came in 2015 and 16, where basically they acquired a company in US. That's how they got Spirit Aerosystems as a customer. And then there was a company that they acquired in 2016 in Europe, which gave them access to landing gear components and engine components, right? Now, these are higher value added components, right? And Aecus is one of the only companies जहाँ पे there is full vertical integration within the same campus. तो वहाँ पे एक बार रॉ मटेरियल आता है, forge होता है, machine होता है, surface treatment होती है, assembly होता है, it doesn't leave the campus ever. It's the only company like that in the world which has everything full vertical integration within the same campus, and that is what makes Aecus very special. In fact, one way that Aecus has grown is through JVs. It has formed JV with Saab where they manufacture door structures. They are the sole suppliers to A321 where they're doing overhatch doors, plug-in doors, and they also have JV with Magellan for surface treatment. So they've very effectively used JVs with for increasing their capabilities and acquiring new businesses and new customers. That said, at least what we feel is that while this is a business which will grow steadily, maybe at 20-25% and will do margins of between 20 to 25%, as an investor, Aecus में पैसा तभी बनेगा if their consumer business picks up well.
Right.
And that is a separate conversation altogether. There are, expectations that this business will scale up 10x in the next 3 years, but probably not relevant to our discussion. But from an investor perspective, that business becomes equally important.
Right. It's just not an aerospace story. It's also consumer business story.
It's a consumer business story.
Right. So coming to, I think there is a raw material side where I think आपने एक PTC industries का discussion करा था पहले, but I honestly don't understand the multiples, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. And Rossel, Texas, I also think you talked about.
Yes. So Rossel, Texas is more on military aircraft.
Right.
They don't have any commercial programs. What they do is very high labor intensive work where they're essentially assembling wiring harnesses, right? An aircraft as compared to an auto has very complicated wiring harness structure. An auto may a wiring harness will be connected to 20, 30 different things. In aerospace is connected to 200 different things.
Right.
Right. But what Rossel does is very labor intensive and it's primarily for military aircraft. They don't have any commercial exposure so far. And Rossel entered this business, like I said, through offset contracts. Boeing saw that they were doing really good work and started giving them more work for a defense space, right? Now, again, this is a very labor intensive work. We're not very sure how this would scale up because again, components scale up better than these labor intensive processes. But Rossel, Texas has also been talking about getting into panels and switches and manufacture components which are used in wiring harnesses, right? So we'll see how that scales up. You spoke about PTC Industries. Now, PTC Industries, valuations aside, is actually one of the most interesting stories in the ecosystem. So PTC ने क्या किया? They basically acquired something known as VAR, which is vacuum arc remelting. This is basically, think of it like an induction pot जहाँ पे vacuum एकदम भरा हुआ है, air है नहीं, and it is used to purify raw materials, right? जो हमने steel बोला, titanium बोला, we spoke about super alloys. They have to be ultra pure if you have to use them in aerospace. And for that, they have to go through this melting and remelting process, which is VIM and VAR, vacuum induction melting and vacuum arc remelting. Now, these are very capex intensive businesses. You have to spend billions of dollars to spend to scale up these businesses. But what PTC did, and somehow they managed to acquire these businesses at a fraction of a cost. I mean, dirt cheap cost. So 2022 May, they acquired VAR facility, which would usually cost $3 to $4 million for $350,000. Then they acquired something known as EBCHR. ये क्या होता है? जैसे scrap steel होता है, that can be reused to manufacture steel products. Titanium scrap can also be reused to manufacture titanium products. You need to have EBCHR technology there. Now, the capacity that PTC is setting up, that would usually cost $80 to $90 million, they acquired it for $3 to $4 million, right? And then they acquired this in Europe. They're shifting all the plants to India for a cost of 150 to 180 crores. And the revenue that they can do on this is about 1,800 to 2,000 crores. Now, generally, you would do 1 to 1.5x fixed asset turnover, but somehow PTC acquired these businesses at very distressed valuations and now is looking to scale up this business with a 10 to 15x asset turnover. So that is the Aerospace Materials Group, which is the only company which is participating in this tier 4. You have Medani as well, which is a PSU, but they have their own set of issues. On the private side, PTC is the only company which is planning to scale up the tier 4 or the Aerospace Materials Group. What they're also doing is that they're setting up aerospace castings. Aerospace castings mein they set up 600 tons of super alloy and titanium facilities where they would procure raw materials from here and then manufacture casting products for their customers. Now, interestingly, they have 600 tons of capacity. As per the management, the components that they're manufacturing, the price could vary from 10,000 rupees per kg to as much as 1 crore per kg, right? Even if you take 1 lakh per kg, you're looking at a 6,000 crore revenue, right? Whether this happens or not is something we have to see. But one very interesting technology that PTC has is single bead crystal technology.
Right.
Globally, only 2 players have this technology. This is used for engines. Globally, only 2 players have this. In India, PTC is the only player who claims to have this. Now, what is this single blade technology, right? जो engine होता है, उसका जो turbine section होता है, उसमें blades जैसा मैंने कहा, बहुत ज़्यादा temperature पे चलते हैं. That 1500-1600 degree Celsius के temperature पे चलते हैं. And every metal has a melting point and it breaks under extreme stress and heat. Every metal. If you see a metal, it's made of multiple crystals inside it. So think of it like a sugar cube. भाई बड़ा सा sugar cube है. उसमें छोटे छोटे crystals हैं. अगर आप उसको squeeze करते हो, वो टूट जाता है. The crystals don't break. What breaks is the gap between them. उनको कहते हैं grain boundaries. क्योंकि इनके बीच में gap है. When you put pressure on it, it breaks. The same thing happens in metals, especially in the turbine section of engine. So for that, you need a single crystal bead technology where you get rid of the grain boundaries between crystals and you have a single grain. Now, this is a highly protected technology. I mean, Howmet has it and PCC has it. And PTC Industries in India claims to be the third company to have it. They won a contract before the Kaveri engines where they'll be supplying the single bead crystal technology to DRDO. And like I mentioned, this is 1 CR per kg component.
Right.
So PTC is from components to sub-assemblies. That's where they lie. And honestly, the scale that they can get with the current capacities that they have is humongous.
So any other company that we're missing out in this space?
There's Raymond Limited.
Maini.
Maini
Right,
Precision.
that is one.
So Raymond has about 66% stake in Maini Precision. Maini Precision was a business that they acquired. And Maini Precision, if you see, 70% of his business comes from engine parts. Engine parts is the most complicated part of the aircraft, right? So 70% comes from engines and the rest comes from structures and landing gear, etc. And within engines also, they manufacture 300 plus SKUs for LEAP engine. So they are present in the newer engine programs as far as they are concerned, right? And it's important to be present in newer programs because you don't only participate in production program, you also participate in replacement. So for example, अगर हम पुराना engine का बात करें LEAP का CMFL 56, वो production में अभी है ही नहीं. So you're only participating in the replacement piece there, right? But Maini over here is present in production as well as replacement, and they're present across LEAP 1A, which is for Airbus, LEAP 1B, which is for Boeing, and LEAP 1C, which is Comac, right? So Maini, again, if you look at the kind of materials they use very hard to machine materials like titanium and Inconel. These are materials which are not hard to machine, which we can discuss this later when we talk about how to pick stocks and how to see the complex parts of the value chain. But about 70% of their revenue comes from these materials, from processing these materials, right? And again, it's a very complicated and complex part of the value chain. So that's what ensures that Maini stands apart from its competitors. It does about 320 crores of revenue, about 20 to 25% of EBITDA. At its current facility, it can do about 500 crores of revenue. But very recently, Maini also announced capex expansion in Andhra Pradesh, where first they signed a contract with Safran for machine assemblies. And now
This is for the LEAP facility. Right?
USD facility. And now they'll be spending about 500 crores there, which should get commercialized somewhere in calendar year 27. If you look at where Maini is present in the value chain, they don't do forging in-house. They don't do surface treatment in-house, very little surface treatment. They are positioned as a pure play machining company.
मतलब vertical integration नहीं.
Vertical integration nahi hai. And they do some sub-assemblies as well, right? So that's how Maini is positioned in the value chain.
So I think very beautifully you explained about all the companies which are positioned there in the value chain. Now, I think just coming to the last part where I have like 2 more questions. Sorry for asking like these questions.
No, absolutely.
But one of the question that arises is कि इस industry में फिर अगर if someone is independently studying this industry and developing a stock picking framework, so what will be sort of a checklist type framework that you will have कि at least इस company में ये तो होना ही चाहिए? And what are some of the risk factors that you see which are linked to working capital of these companies? Because a lot of them don't like generate very high cash flows because of the high inventory days. And second, I think starting multiples for some of them might be optically high, right? So how to deal with that? And also lumpiness होती है, right? कि कभी कोई आपका सप्लाई गया, sometimes then there will be no supply for next couple of years. लंपीनेस से भी कैसे डील करें, बिकॉज प्रोग्राम्स इन itself are very lumpy in nature.
Right, right. So let's start with the framework, right? How do we decipher companies which are doing more complex work versus the others? Before that, what I can tell you is that all these listed companies that we've discussed will be multiples of where they are just because of sheer opportunity size itself. But the scalability will be relative, right? So some companies will scale higher than the others. So the first thing that at least we look at is that what is the complexity of the part that these companies are manufacturing? Because complexity defines your economics, complexity defines profitability. And all parts, aerospace, are not relatively higher complexity. But again, within that, the complexity is straddled across multiple parts, right? So what is complexity a function of? Complexity is a function of the kind of machines you're using first. Are you using 3-axis machines or 5-axis machines?
Right.
If you're using 5-axis machines, that means the kind of work that you're doing is more complicated. In 5-axis, what happens is the tool moves along with the part. In 3-axis, either the tool moves or only the part moves, right? So 5-axis is a lot more complicated as far as machining is concerned. That's the first thing that you look at. Second thing that you look at is what kind of materials is the company working with. Like I said, there are 4 materials: steel, aluminium, titanium, and superalloys. Steel and aluminium are very easy to machine. I mean, there are not a lot of technicalities involved there. But titanium and superalloys are very hard to machine materials. You can't make shapes out of them easily. In fact, they retain heat. तो जो टूल होता है ना, उसके एज पे हीट रिटेन होता है, सो टूल का वेयर एंड टेयर इज फार हायर in titanium and superalloys as compared to steel and aluminium. The cycle time of making a part is also higher. In steel and aluminium, where you make a part in 4 to 5 hours, in titanium and superalloys can go up to 15 to 20 hours, right? That's a sort of cycle time that is involved there. So companies which are dealing in these materials have to have strong metallurgy knowledge and material science knowledge. And it's not easy. There are very limited number of players who are doing titanium and Inconel machining. Then the third thing of defining complexity is that whether the part is a rotating part or whether it's a stationary part. So you have rotating parts in engine where on turbine blades and compressors, the blades are moving at 4,000 revolutions per minute. In turbines are moving at 20,000, 15,000 revolutions per minute. Now these again are not easy parts to manufacture. So if you're comparing a stationary part to a rotating part, a rotating part will have much higher dimensional tolerances as compared to a stationary part. So like I said, that blade that you spoke about, turbine blade, the dimensional tolerance is 5 microns. A structured part, on the other hand, also has very high dimensional tolerance, but it would be 0.05 millimeters versus 0.0005 millimeters for a blade, right? So that is how you define complexity.
Right.
And you have to now position companies that we discussed so far within that complexity. Okay, who's doing engine work? Who's working more on titanium? Who's working more on Inconel? Who's using more 5-axis machines? Right? This is how the first level of filtration needs to be done. Second thing that matters here is the vertical integration that we've spoken about. Companies that are vertically integrated from forging to tier 1 assembly will get much larger scale of work than someone who's only doing machining, right? And PCC, Precision Cast Parts, a Berkshire-owned company, is a very good example of this. So if you see the history of PCC, they acquired multiple companies and basically backward integrated and forward integrated and became a $10 billion company. So they're integrated right from raw materials to assemblies, right? In Boeing, their contribution is as much as $15 million, right? So PCC grew as a result of vertical integration because their ability to capture a large part of business from Airbus and Boeing was also higher. So that is the second thing that you look at. Who is vertically integrated in the value chain? Third thing is relationships. And relationship is a function of this factor called on-time delivery, right? If you look at the players that we've discussed earlier in North America and Europe, their on-time delivery has gone below 50%. Now, not all companies in India give you this number, but you should ask companies कि आपका on-time delivery कितना है. Even 95% is not good enough. If your on-time delivery is 100%, which is the case in some companies like Sansera and Dynamatic, then your ability again to garner large part of the business and build stronger relationships with the OEMs increases, right? So in Sansera's case, like I mentioned, they were working with Triumph and Saab, but started working directly with Airbus because of their ability to deliver products on time. So these are the three key things that matter the most. Then there are a couple of more things which may not be relevant for India right now, but over a period of time may start getting more relevant. First is BTS versus BTP.
Build to
Build to spec versus build to print.
right.
बिल्ड टू प्रिंट में क्या होता है, आपको OEM डिज़ाइन देगा, आपको बताएगा एग्जैक्टली इस डिज़ाइन से बनाना है, एग्जैक्टली ये प्रोसीजर और प्रोसेस फॉलो करना है, एंड यू जस्ट हैव टू रेप्लिकेट दैट. In build to spec, OEM will only give you the dimensions and the dimensional tolerances. You have to come up with your own process to make that product.
Right.
So Unimec, for example, gets 5% of its revenue from BTS. Dynamatic does semi BTS, right? Where I gave the example of flat track beams, that is semi BTS. जहाँ पे उन्हें number of components reduced from 200 to 20 and became the single source supplier. Azad is doing BTS with Honeywell from the works we've done. They manufacture something known as body valve, which is used in hydraulics. So that over there, they're pursuing BTS opportunities. Now, primary bulk of the revenue for Indian companies would be BTP, build to print, right? That's how the business operates or the industry operates. But you have these 2-3 players who are showing early signs or demonstrating early signs of entering into BTS as well.
मतलब BTP है कि OEM ने आपको पूरा डिजाइन विजाइन दे दिया, आपको बस
Correct.
बना के प्रिंट करके देना है.
Exactly.
Whereas build to specification is when you're involved in the designing itself.
Exactly.
So that eventually will be much more higher value adding work, right?
100%. So in EMS also you have this, right? You have
Right.
ODM and OEM.
Yeah.
You can relate it to EMS like that, where ODM you're designing it, OEM the person or the customer is giving you the designs and process, right? So similarly, it's going to happen in aerospace as well, but it's going to take its own sweet time. Okay, it's
Right.
not something that will happen overnight. And the last thing, of course, is balance sheet strength. As you discussed, you need to spend a lot of money on capex. It takes a long time to scale up. It takes a long time to get certifications, and hence you have to have backing of a large group, or otherwise have large balance sheet strength to enable this growth. Which is exactly why Manny got acquired by Raymond, because they didn't have the balance sheet strength to grow. With Raymond, they got the balance sheet strength, and now they'll be scaling this business.
Right. Right. So I think complexities leke, the type of orders these companies are getting and the balance sheet strength, I think these are some of the things that matter. I think some of the companies are also talking about the programs that they're involved in
Yes.
and also the multi-year order book visibility that they get.
Yes.
I think as investors, they can also look at that independently कि यार अगर किसी कंपनी का ऑर्डर बुक ही 2030 तक है या उससे बियॉन्ड है तो that gives a lot of visibility into revenues.
Correct. That's a very good point actually you've raised, and something that I should have mentioned. Now, let's say a person or a company is present in A320 program versus A321 program. The volumes and the visibility is totally different,
Right.
right? Or if you're in an A220 program, it's very different. A320, Airbus wants to manufacture 75 a month, right? In 1 or 2 calendar years. But A220, they're only manufacturing 14 a month,
Right.
or intend to get to 14 a month, right? So that is also very important. Which programs are you involved in? Again, like I said with many, are you involved in CFM's older generation engine or newer generation engine? Newer generation engine would have a lot more scalability and longevity. So this is also something that the investors need to track. Which programs are you visible in, and what is the visibility you have in those programs?
Right. So I think now we discussed the framework for selecting businesses also over there, and we've discussed the value chain also, and you have completely, I think, सेक्टर को आपने एकदम तोड़ के बेसिक से फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल से इजी वे में सिखा दिया तो ताकि किसी को भी एरोस्पेस इंडस्ट्री सीखती है तो होपफुली इस वीडियो को आगे बार बार दिल कीप यूजिंग फॉर द नेक्स्ट 3 4 5 ईयर्स. तो एक फाइनल क्वेश्चन सागर यहाँ पे जरूर आता है कि सी एवरी इंडस्ट्री हैज अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड एवरी इंडस्ट्री हैज रिस्क. तो रिस्क फैक्टर्स जो हमने अभी डिस्कस करे थे वर्किंग कैपिटल का, देन मे बी कैश फ्लोज का, राइट, मे बी कई लोग कहते हो बैरियर टू एंट्री भी बन जाता है, एंड फाइनली आई थिंक वैल्यूएशंस एटलीस्ट ऑप्टिकल पी में तो एक्सपेंसिव दिखेंगे. तो हाउ टू डील विद दिस रिस्क फैक्टर्स एंड क्या क्या रिस्क फैक्टर्स इंडस्ट्री में एग्जिस्ट करते हैं. एंड ऑल्सो आई थिंक एक रिस्क फैक्टर ये भी है कि अगर आप बोइंग के किसी प्रोजेक्ट में इन्वॉल्व थे एंड वो पता से प्रोजेक्ट ही डिले हो गया बिकॉज वो खुद ही नहीं बना पा रहे,
Yes.
वो भी आई थिंक एक रिस्क फैक्टर हो जाता है बिकॉज ऑफ लंपीनेस. सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट दीज रिस्क फैक्टर्स?
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. All opportunities come with their own set of risk factors, right? And I think the first point that you mentioned on working capital is very relevant to address. Let's understand that higher working capital is the nature of the industry. It's not an exception. This is how the industry works. And there are reasons for that. Okay. And specifically true for Indian companies. So when we spoke about tier 4 material suppliers, we also said that there are no aerospace grade approved mills in the country.
Right.
It requires a lot of capex and you have to go through stringent certification, which means all these aerospace companies in India are actually importing these raw materials. And when you import raw materials, there's obviously a gestation period involved. And some raw materials have a very high waiting period. So for example, titanium in some cases or super alloys in some cases, the waiting period is as much as 12 months, 12 to 18 months. तो एज अ रिजल्ट क्या होता है, क्योंकि आपको जेस्टेशन पीरियड का ध्यान रखना पड़ता है, योर प्रोग्राम्स कैन नॉट स्टॉप, योर प्रोडक्शन कैन नॉट स्टॉप, राइट? सो यू बेसिकली procure higher raw materials given the visibility that you have. The inventory as a result is higher because you have high visibility. You procure large amount of raw materials, and as a result that reflects in your balance sheet, right? You and what also happens is that since most of these companies are undergoing multiple first article inspections, there is a minimum order quantity involved here. कि आप 1 केजी, अगर मेरे को एक प्रोडक्ट का फर्स्ट आर्टिकल इंस्पेक्शन करना है, मैं सिर्फ उसके लिए रॉ मटेरियल इंपोर्ट नहीं कर सकता। मुझे करना है फॉर लार्ज कैपेसिटीज एंड लार्ज वॉल्यूम्स, राइट? So that minimum order quantity also plays a big role, the inventory of these companies, which is why the inventory looks bloated. For example, if you look at Azad, they're undergoing very long approval cycles, and there is a minimum order quantity involved here, right? And they have to import all of it. Unfortunately, you can't take it from a local manufacturer.
Right.
So as a result, the inventory looks high. Second reason why inventory looks high is because there is something known as buy to fly ratio in this industry. What does buy to fly ratio mean? अगर मैं 10 kg का raw material use कर रहा हूँ, how much of that 10 kg is actually flying in the aircraft as the end finished product? And in aerospace, because the dimensional tolerances are so high, the precision required is so high, the buy to fly ratio can be as much as 15:1 and 20:1. So which means I'm buying 15 kg of raw material, but उसको shave off करके
1 किलो ही बचेगा।
1 kilo बचेगा.
Right.
Everything else is scrap, right? So which is where if you see companies like Ansera, if you look at all these manufacturing companies, they have scrap sales.
Right.
It is a very high portion of their revenue. It's because that's the nature of the industry. So you have to have large inventory to machine these very precise components. So the inventory as a result also looks larger.
I think that gets compensated by margins at the end, right?
Exactly. So margins compensate for it. So I think more relevant metric here is what is the ROC that they generate. Right? And as they scale up, as they become bigger, the ROC for these companies would definitely improve, right? One thing that can change the inventory, of course, is once you start getting more aerospace grade approved mills in India. It's going to take time, but when that starts happening, like I said, you have PTC, you have Medani, you have Sunflag.
Right.
If they start getting approved, then obviously lead time to procure raw materials reduces, and then you can afford to hold lower inventory.
Right.
So that can structurally impact, and it's going to happen, right? So this working capital is one risk which can be addressed, and like I said, it's the nature of the game, and the game has to be played in that manner. So another point that you mentioned, Mohit, was the volatility in programs. And actually this volatility is more relevant for Boeing, or has been more relevant for Boeing so far as compared to Airbus, right? We've discussed reasons why Boeing could not scale up properly. Unka jo incidents hua tha, their FAA had basically restricted the number of monthly manufacturing of 737s. But वो अब last year से rectify होना चालू हो गया है. And from 38, they moved to about 50 737s a month. Another challenge with Boeing has been that their supply chain is a lot more consolidated than Airbus. So Airbus had taken basically a regional supply chain strategy.
Right.
कि उनने यूरोप में बनाया, चाइना में बनाया, नॉर्थ अमेरिका में बनाया. Boeing is heavily concentrated as far as the final assembly line is concerned in North America. So they are not as resilient as Airbus when it comes to its supply chain management, right? And that also is becoming a big problem for Boeing. काफ़ी labor union strikes हुए हैं. Their ramp up of aircraft manufacturing has struggled as a result. So this risk at least seems to be more relevant for Boeing right now. I'm not saying this may not happen with Airbus, but again, look, this is the nature of the industry. There will be volatility. In fact, in some cases, when the global passenger volume starts declining, there will be cancellations as well. So the order book that you're seeing right now, right, this is the gross order book, the net order book. If tomorrow the economy or the global economy starts going through a downturn, you will see cancellations as well. But that's the nature of the industry. We'll have to live with it. But as long as you're present in newer age programs, and as of today, more skewed towards Airbus, I think you're relatively better positioned versus someone who has more exposure with Boeing. And another risk factor, which may play out in this industry is the availability of engineering talent itself. Now, there are enough STEM graduates in India. I'm not saying it's going to be a problem. But since this business or since this industry is scaling up so fast, there will be a lot of maramari for this talent.
Right.
And the cost that these machinists will charge may increase as a result. So, for example, in case of Azad, they are increasing their capacity by 10x, which means they'll have to have 10x more people in their shop floor. In Hyderabad, it's not that easy to get machinists, right? So that also is a risk that could play out for these players and something which is solvable, but it is a key monitorable.
I think one of the reasons also why we see this industry getting concentrated in Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, those type of belts maybe.
Correct. Actually, Bangalore is the largest.
Bangalore also, yeah.
Bangalore में airport के side में काफी बड़ा cluster है for manufacturing. Incrementally, Vizag is coming in because Naidu is encouraging industrialization there. So Vizag is emerging as a hub.
Right.
But Hyderabad में it's not as big as Bangalore.
Interesting. So I think that gives us a very good idea about the industry कि यार value chain हमें समझ आई, हमें TAM समझ आया. We also understood कि who are the key players. Then we also understood कि key bottlenecks क्या create हो रखी है West के अंदर. And then we also saw कि risk factors क्या है and Indian players कौन से और कहाँ opportunities है. Some of the players are talking about 6, 7 times scale up, right?
Yes.
So in conclusion, Sagar, I think anything that you'd like to add, and then we'll go for the conclusion, right?
Yeah, no, look, I think we've discussed almost everything about the industry. You've also spoken about valuations which are inflated, but I mean, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder.
Right.
We think that this is a very structurally attractive space and there is immense longevity in this industry, right? You'll see that all these companies that we've spoken about so far, even though we've spoken about the framework that we should follow while evaluating these companies, but we are certain that all of these companies will be multiples of where they are just because of sheer size of the opportunity itself. The change is structural. The change is here to last. And I think as investors, we should definitely be looking at this industry and have some exposure to commercial aerospace in our portfolio.
Perfect. So thank you so much for doing this podcast. And hopefully जो audience है आप अपनी top 7 learnings इस podcast के नीचे comment section में डालेंगे. Because doing these industry level podcasts, because Sagar I think must have put in some weeks to months of work because frankly some of the like terms he was into, so that just shows the type of hard work that he has done on this sector. So thank you everyone. Thank you so much Sagar for agreeing to do this and simplifying this sector for once and for all so that the entire Indian investing audience can use this industry analysis for their own investing journey in the future as well.
Thank you so much, Mohit. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you everyone. Jai Hind.